Hi, I'm Linda, and today I'm reading the story of Jessica, who believed in a perfect life. My name is Jessica, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. I used to believe in happy endings. In the fairy tale version of love, I married Brian when I was just 24. We met in college in Columbus, Ohio. He was charming, ambitious, and he made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. We moved into a small but cozy apartment, full of dreams and promises. The first year was good, really good. We were building a life together, cooking dinners, watching movies, talking late into the night. I thought we had something real, but things started changing after I got pregnant. Brian became distant. He said he was just stressed with work, trying to provide for us. I believed him. I always tried to understand, to be supportive. I didn't want to nag or complain. Then came the lies, the late nights, the phone turned upside down on the table, the moments he wouldn't look me in the eye. Still, I clung to the hope that this was just a phase, that he'd come back to me, that once our daughter was born, he'd become the man I married again. I was wrong. One night, while he was in the shower, I picked up his phone. I wasn't proud of it, but something in my gut told me I had to know. And there it was. Messages, photos, weeks, maybe months, of betrayal. But the worst part? It wasn't just some stranger. It was my best friend. The one who held my hand at the baby shower. The one who said she'd always be there for me. My heart broke in 1,000 pieces. I confronted him, shaking, crying, furious. He didn't even deny it. He said, "It just happened," like it was nothing. The next morning, he left. Just like that, I was alone, 7 months pregnant. No job, no support. But this isn't just a story about betrayal. This is the beginning of how I found myself. One evening, I was supposed to pick up Emily from daycare, but Brian said he had a late meeting and wouldn't be home for hours. I felt uneasy, but I convinced myself it was just work. By 5 p.m., I was done with errands and decided to surprise him, maybe make dinner early, give him a break. I got home, unlocked the door quietly, and stepped inside. The house was unusually warm, and I heard voices from the living room. Brian's laugh. It was lighter, different than usual. And then, a soft feminine voice. Laura's. I froze at the doorway. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was a silly conversation. Maybe it was innocent. But as I took a few steps forward, I saw them. Brian was sitting on the couch, leaning close to Laura. Their hands were intertwined. She rested her head on his shoulder. Their eyes met, and for a split second, they didn't notice me. My chest tightened. My stomach flipped. It was like my whole body was trying to scream, but no sound came out. I dropped the bag with Emily's things. My legs shook. Laura looked up suddenly. Her face went pale. Brian snapped his head toward me, eyes wide in panic. I wanted to ask how long, but all that came out was a choked whisper. How long? Have you been doing this? I barely recognized my own voice. Brian looked down, ashamed. Laura stayed silent. My tears began to fall uncontrollably. Emily, oblivious, was in her stroller by the door. I picked her up, held her close. That night, the perfect life I thought I had was shattered in an instant. How could the people I trusted most betray me like this? I held Emily close, feeling her heartbeat calm me, even as my own heart broke. That night, the fear and denial finally broke. I knew there was no going back, but I also knew I had to find a way forward. After that night, everything changed. Brian packed his bags and left our family home, and I was left alone with Emily, 7 months pregnant and terrified of what lay ahead. We moved out of the big house into a small rented cottage on the outskirts of town. It was modest, cramped, and nothing like the home I once dreamed of raising my children in. The silence in that little cottage was deafening. I sat on the cold wooden floor back against the wall, holding Emily close. I felt broken, abandoned, and utterly lost. Money was tight. I had no job, no savings, and no family nearby to turn to. Every day was a struggle to keep the lights on, to feed Emily, and to hold myself together. I applied for dozens of jobs online, but with no college degree and no recent work experience, doors kept closing in my face. Nights were the hardest. The quiet made my thoughts loud. Memories of Brian and Laura, the betrayal, the lies. But every time I felt like giving up, I looked at Emily's sleeping face and found a sliver of strength. For her, I had to keep fighting. One night, after feeding Emily, I scrolled through TikTok on my old cracked phone and stumbled upon a story about a woman who made money selling digital products online. At first, I thought, that's impossible for me. I didn't own a laptop, only that old phone. I didn't know how to design or sell anything. But something inside me sparked. Maybe this was my chance. A way out of the dark. I downloaded Canva, watched free tutorials, and started creating simple printables. It was hard. I felt overwhelmed, exhausted, and full of doubt. But I kept going. Slowly, I made my first $5 sale. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me going. That first $5 sale felt like I had won the lottery. I remember staring at the notification on my phone for a full minute, just to make sure it wasn't a mistake. Someone had actually bought something I made. Me, the girl who had nothing just weeks ago, sitting on the floor of a rented cottage with a baby in her arms. It wasn't about the money. It was about hope. It was proof that I wasn't stuck forever. That maybe, just maybe, I could build a different life. So I stayed up night after night, creating, learning, experimenting. I watched free YouTube videos while rocking Emily to sleep. I studied how to make digital planners, how to write better descriptions, how to make Etsy listings stand out, all from my tiny phone. I didn't have a fancy desk or a laptop. I worked sitting on the floor with a pillow behind my back and my baby next to me. Some days I was so tired I cried. Some days I wanted to give up. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered why I started. I wanted freedom. I wanted to never again rely on a man who could walk away. I wanted to give Emily, and the baby on the way, a life better than the one we had. Within a few weeks, I made $50, then $200. I reinvested every dollar into learning more, buying a cheap keyboard to type faster, paying for basic Canva subscription, upgrading my phone plan so I could upload more content. I started creating ebooks, guides, journals, anything that could help someone or bring value. My little shop began to grow. I wasn't rich yet. We were still living day by day. But there was a shift, not just in my finances, but in me. I was no longer the woman who begged her husband to stay. I was a mother building her own way out, brick by digital brick. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt proud. By the third month, I had made over $800. It wasn't millions, but it meant I could finally buy proper groceries. I could say yes when Emily asked for a coloring book at the store. I could sleep a little easier at night knowing there was food in the fridge and the rent was paid. But something else was changing too. For the first time in years, I had space to think beyond survival. I started dreaming again, not about mansions or luxury, but simple, beautiful things, like owning a laptop, taking my kids to the beach, having coffee in the morning without the tightness of fear in my chest. I also started to heal. There was a moment, I remember it so clearly, when I looked in the mirror and didn't see a broken woman anymore. I saw someone strong, a mother who stayed when others left, a creator, a businesswoman. And then, something unexpected happened. I got a message from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. His name was Daniel. We went to high school together back in Austin. He said he saw one of my Etsy products shared on Pinterest and recognized my name. He told me how proud he was, how amazed he was at everything I was building. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just a friendly message, a little nostalgia. But he kept checking in, asking how I was, how the kids were, if I was sleeping, eating. He never pushed, never flirted, just listened, supported. And I realized I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to someone caring without an agenda, to someone seeing me, not as a burden, not as a broken woman, but as someone worth rooting for. We started talking more. Voice messages turned into late-night calls. He made me laugh, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in so long. It startled me the first time. I didn't fall in love overnight. I was still healing, still rebuilding. But for the first time in forever, I felt seen, safe, like maybe, just maybe, there could be more to life than survival. I didn't tell the kids yet. I didn't know what this would become. I only knew that something was opening in my heart. Not because a man was saving me, but because I had already saved myself. Now I was just beginning to let love in. Again. Some nights when the kids were asleep and the apartment was quiet, I would lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, phone in my hand, Daniel's last voice message still playing in my ears. He was gentle, thoughtful, always asking how my day went, telling me how proud he was of what I'd built, how lucky my kids were to have me. And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that maybe this was different, that maybe good men still existed, that maybe I deserved to be loved. But every time I felt myself getting closer to him, something inside me would tighten. A voice, a memory. The night I caught Brian in our bedroom with my best friend. The betrayal, the humiliation, the way he looked at me like I was the intruder, like I was the one who didn't belong there. That memory haunted me. It whispered in moments I should have felt happy. It stole the warmth from Daniel's kind words. One night, Daniel asked if he could visit. Just for a coffee. Nothing big. No pressure. I froze. I stared at the message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the screen. And then I did what fear always makes you do. I ignored it. The next day, he didn't write. Nor the day after. And it hurt. More than I expected. Because here's the truth no one tells you. When someone breaks you deeply, they don't just take love away. They take your ability to receive love. They teach you to expect pain, to prepare for abandonment, to flinch when someone reaches out with softness. I spent the next week avoiding the mirror, snapping at the kids, working late into the night to distract myself. Until one evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat alone at the kitchen table, candle lit, laptop open, and I cried. Not loud sobbing, just quiet, exhausted tears, because I was tired of being afraid, tired of keeping the door to my heart shut just to feel safe. So I picked up my phone, and I messaged Daniel. I'm scared, I wrote, not of you, just of believing in something again. He replied 5 minutes later. I know, he said. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. That night, I didn't sleep much. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. The next few weeks passed in small but meaningful steps. Daniel didn't push. He didn't flood my phone with calls or messages. He simply checked in. Once in the morning, once at night. A simple, "How are you?" or "Did you eat today?" And I found myself looking forward to those messages, smiling when I saw his name pop up on the screen. We didn't talk about anything big. Sometimes it was about the weather, sometimes about the kids. Sometimes we just shared memes and silly jokes. And in those tiny moments, I began to feel safe again. One Saturday, I took the kids to the park. I watched them laugh and run and fall and get back up, like they always did. As I sat on the bench, sipping lukewarm coffee from a paper cup, Daniel messaged, "Still too early for that coffee in person?" I stared at the message, and this time, I smiled. "Not too early," I wrote back. "Maybe next weekend?" He replied with just a thumbs up emoji and a heart. I laughed, out loud, like I hadn't done in months. When the weekend came, I was nervous. I changed outfits 3 times, burned the first batch of muffins I tried to bake, cleaned the entire apartment twice, and when the doorbell finally rang, I froze. For a moment, I thought about not answering, hiding, pretending I wasn't home. But then I looked at myself in the mirror. Tired eyes, slight smile, stronger than I thought. I opened the door. Daniel stood there with a small bouquet of wildflowers and a coffee in each hand. No expectations, no pressure. Just him, warm eyes and calm presence. He sat with me on the balcony. We didn't say much, just sipped coffee, watched the sky turn pink, and listened to the sounds of the neighborhood winding down. It wasn't romantic in the movie kind of way. It was better. It was real. He didn't ask about Brian. He didn't ask about my past. He just existed beside me, quietly, patiently, respectfully. That night, after he left, I tucked the kids in and sat by the window. For once, my thoughts didn't spiral, my heart didn't race. Instead, I felt peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having everything figured out, but the kind that comes from knowing you're finally choosing yourself. Finally opening the door, not for someone else, but for you. The next morning, the sun felt a little warmer, the air a little lighter. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a woman surviving. I felt like a woman living. A few days after that peaceful morning, something shifted. I was folding laundry when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me made me pick up. "Jessica?" My stomach dropped. That voice. I hadn't heard it in over a year, but I'd know it anywhere. It was Brian. I just wanted to check on the kids," he said, his voice hesitant. "I heard from Emma that you moved." Emma. Of course. My former best friend. The same one I caught in our bedroom with him. I didn't even want to know how she got my new number. I didn't respond right away. My hand gripped the edge of the counter. "The kids are fine," I said flatly. "We're fine." There was silence on the line. Then, "I messed up, Jess. I know that now." I closed my eyes. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't crying. I was just numb. "I think about you every day, and I want to make it right," he continued. "Maybe we could talk? Just us. For closure. Funny word coming from the man who shattered me. I could hear my own breathing, the hum of the fridge, the children laughing in the other room. And then I realized, this wasn't my storm anymore. It was his, and I didn't owe him shelter. "I have nothing left to say, Brian," I said, steady, calm. "You had your chance, and you threw it away. We've moved on. Don't call again." I hung up, and then I just stood there, waiting for the guilt, the sadness, the what-ifs. But none came. Instead, I felt something else. Power. I wasn't that broken woman anymore, begging for answers. I was the mother who held everything together when the world fell apart. The woman who built something from nothing. The one who dared to hope again. That night, I sat with Daniel again, this time at a small cafe downtown. The lights were dim, jazz playing softly in the background. He noticed I was quieter than usual. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. "I got a call today," I said, "from Brian." He tensed, but didn't interrupt. I told him not to call again. I don't want him in our lives. Not after everything. Daniel nodded slowly. Good, he said. You deserve peace, Jessica. And in that moment, I knew. He didn't want to fix me. He didn't want to replace anyone. He just wanted to stand beside me, wherever I decided to go. I reached across the table and took his hand. Not out of need, but out of choice. A choice I made for myself. After that conversation with Brian, something in me shifted permanently. It was as if the final thread that connected me to my old life had finally snapped. And instead of pain, I felt freedom. The next morning, while sipping coffee with Daniel and watching the kids draw at the kitchen table, an idea came to me. Not a lightning bolt. More like a quiet whisper. Article I had always loved to draw. Back in high school, I would sketch for hours. People, places, even dresses I'd never afford. But life happened, and dreams were put on shelves we forget how to reach. But that day, watching Lily draw with a purple crayon, I remembered. I pulled out an old sketchbook I'd packed away during the move and started doodling. Nothing fancy, just simple designs. Flowers, faces, quotes in cursive, and something inside me lit up. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I showed Daniel. These are beautiful, he said, eyes scanning the pages. Have you ever thought of selling your art? I laughed. Who would want this? But he was serious. There are people out there who would love this. You could sell prints, or even make digital versions. He helped me research platforms, Etsy, Redbubble, Gumroad. The world was so much bigger than I'd imagined. It started small, a few uploads, a few likes. Then, a sale, then another. The first time someone paid $10 for one of my prints, I cried. Not because of the money, but because someone out there saw value in something I created. Week by week, I built a small online store. Daniel helped me with tech stuff, and the kids cheered every time a new order came in. My little hobby became a business. I designed late at night, between school pickups and meals, sometimes with a baby on my lap. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. I started making inspirational journals, filled with my art and quotes from my journey. You are not what broke you. Bloom in the cracks. It's okay to start over. People started sharing them. DMs came in from other women. Single moms, divorced women, broken hearts, all saying the same thing. Your words feel like mine. One day, I got an email from a small magazine in Austin. They wanted to interview me for a feature on women rebuilding after heartbreak. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before replying. Yes, I'd be honored. From barely affording groceries to being called an artist, from crying on a bathroom floor to inspiring strangers online, it didn't make the past disappear, but it made it all mean something, and that was enough. 5 years have passed. 1 full year since I packed 2 small bags, held my children close, and walked away from a life that was breaking me. And here I was, sitting on the porch of our new home, watching the sun rise, coffee in hand, and my children playing in the yard with Daniel's dog, Max. Peace. Not loud, not flashy, but real. That kind of peace you only find after walking through fire. I often think about that version of me, the woman who cried silently in the bathroom while her husband texted another woman in the next room. The woman who stayed too long because she thought that was strength. The woman who feared starting over more than she feared staying miserable. If only she could see us now. No, life didn't turn perfect. We still had bills, tantrums, spilled cereal, and tired nights. But now, there was laughter at the dinner table. There were hugs that meant something. There were mornings when I looked in the mirror and saw a woman I was proud of. I had my small business, Not $1 million empire, but it paid the bills, and it gave me a purpose. My journals were now in the hands of women across the country. My words were helping others heal, the way I once needed someone to help me. Daniel. He never tried to fix me. He just stood beside me while I did the work. Patient, gentle, real. And the kids, they thrived. Lily started writing stories like mine, and Noah had started calling Daniel Dad on his own. Sometimes I still get messages from Brian. Regretful, nostalgic, filled with what-ifs. But I don't answer. Not out of anger, just closure. That chapter is closed. I no longer needed revenge, apologies, or explanations. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone, because I had already won. Not in the way movies show. No dramatic court scenes, no public shaming. I won quietly, by healing, by creating, by loving again. Not just someone new, but myself. So here's what I know now. You can lose everything. Your home, your marriage, your plans, and still find something better on the other side. You can be shattered and still rebuild. And sometimes, the greatest love story isn't about the man who finally treats you right. It's about the woman who finally sees her worth.